Okay, let's dive in. Imagine this. What if the person you were literally tasked with destroying, what if they were the only one who ever really saw you?
It's a wild starting point, isn't it?
Completely. And what if this creature, this being that everyone agrees is a massive threat, actually became your greatest teacher? Someone who showed you not just how to fight, but really how to live.
And the final twist.
Right. What if the ultimate act, ending a life, was somehow the key, the necessary step for you to realize your own potential?
That's the paradox. It's fascinating and honestly a bit unsettling.
It really is. And it's right at the heart of the source material we're exploring today. We're doing a deep dive into an essay called Assassination Classroom, When Killing Leads to Humanity.
An essay that takes a really close look at the anime and manga by Yusei Matsui.
Exactly. And it peels back all those layers of this, let's be honest, pretty outlandish premise to show these really profound insights hiding just beneath the surface.
Yeah, the essay doesn't just dismiss it as, a quirky action story.
Not at all. So our mission here in this deep dive is to unpack how the essay analyzes it all. We want to pull out the most valuable bits of wisdom, the key perspectives it finds in this story about, well, a tentacled teacher and his class of would-be assassins.
We're basically following the essay's trail as it thinks about education, but like transformative education.
And leadership, specifically empathetic leadership.
Right, and the tough stuff too, like societal exclusion, what that looks like.
And ultimately what it really means to help someone else grow, to foster their potential. So yeah, let's unpack this fascinating perspective.
Okay, so what jumps out immediately from the essay is how it frames Assassination Classroom.
How so?
It doesn't just see it as entertainment, right? It treats the story as this really rich, complex text.
Okay.
It argues that the story uses this extreme, almost absurd scenario
Definitely extreme.
to basically hold up a mirror to some very real, very grounded issues we deal with.
I like what?
Well, the essay suggests it gives us a unique lens to look at complex things in teaching, in society, ethics, even leadership principles.
So the absurdity isn't just for laughs.
Exactly. The essay argues it's a feature, not a bug. It's meant to make us think differently, to get past our usual assumptions by starting somewhere totally unexpected.
Okay, that makes sense. And the essay starts by really grounding us in the world of the story, right? Specifically, Class 3E.
Yes, precisely. The way the essay describes Class 3E immediately flags its importance symbolically.
It's not just some random classroom.
No, not at all. It's called the school's shadow. It's portrayed as basically a dumping ground, a place deliberately set aside for students the system has labeled as failures.
Failures in what sense? Just grades.
The essay emphasizes it's broader than that. It's not just accidental, like they fell behind. It's a structured place within the school system, designed for those who didn't meet the conventional standards. Academically, sure, but also socially or maybe emotionally.
Wow, so it's about being actively cast out, labeled less than by the very system that's supposed to educate them.
That's exactly the point the essay makes. It uses this setting, Class 3E, to launch its critique of those really rigid, performance-obsessed educational models.
Okay.
It sees 3E as this stark symbol of exclusion, a corner where the system basically shoves certain kids aside and tells them, you don't belong here, or your potential is capped.
Yeah.
And the essay wants us to look at this forgotten corner, as it calls it, and really see the systemic forces, the policies and attitudes that create these kinds of marginalized spaces in the first place.
And into that environment, this place defined by failure and exclusion, steps Koro-sensei.
Right. The essay calls him the anomalous catalyst.
Anomalous is putting it mildly.
Definitely. He's not human. He's this bizarre, super fast, yellow, tentacled creature. Moves at Mach 20.
And he arrives with quite an announcement.
A huge one. He says he's already blown up part of the moon, and he plans to destroy the Earth in 1 year. But first things first, he's going to be the new teacher for Class 3E.
This being of immense destructive power wants to teach the so-called failure class.
Exactly. And the assignment he gives them, may be the most unconventional homework ever.
Which is?
They have to assassinate him before the year is up. And this isn't like an extracurricular club.
No.
It's their main focus. It gets woven into their daily school life, their lessons, everything.
Okay, and this is where the essay really highlights that central paradox, isn't it? The provocative core of the story.
Absolutely. The students are given this mission: kill the one being who is actually genuinely saving them.
How so? Saving them?
Well, he's the one who's walked into their lives, who actually sees them, invests time and incredible energy in them, gives them an education and attention they've literally never had before.
Right.
So they're tasked with ending the life of the only person who's given their school lives real meaning and purpose, killing their savior.
And the essay's take on this task is really interesting. It argues we shouldn't just take the assassination plot literally.
That's a key insight, yeah. The essay interprets this whole assassination mission as this profound metaphor.
A metaphor for what?
For self-empowerment. It suggests the real target isn't just the yellow octopus guy at the front of the room.
Okay.
What they really need to kill, according to the essay's reading, is their own outdated self-image.
Ah, okay. Explain that a bit more.
Think about it. Years of being told they're failures,
right?
They've internalized all those labels the system slapped on them. They believe they're incapable. That's the real enemy. That's the internal barrier they have to overcome, to shed, to metaphorically destroy.
So the external mission, trying to physically assassinate Koro-sensei, is really just the vehicle for this massive internal transformation.
Exactly. And the essay argues that through the process, the daily attempts, the planning, the learning new skills, the teamwork involved in trying to kill him, what they end up truly saving.
It isn't the Earth.
What is it then? It's something much more immediate and personal. It's their dignity.
Their dignity.
They're reclaiming their sense of self-worth, rediscovering their capabilities, rebuilding the belief in themselves that the old system just stripped away.
Wow, that reframing is incredibly powerful. It takes the most violent, most absurd part of the story and turns it completely inward, makes it psychological. It really makes you think, doesn't it? How often maybe you feel held back, not by actual external walls, but by limits you've accepted because someone else defined you that way or because of past failures.
Right.
This mission, interpreted like this by the essay, it becomes this radical call to just break free from that internal prison.
And the essay explicitly links that to growth. Overcoming those internal obstacles, those self-perceptions that feel like wounds, is crucial. The daily grind of trying to assassinate Koro-sensei becomes essentially practice.
Practice in what?
Resilience, strategic thinking, believing in yourself even when the odds are impossible. These are the tools they need to face both those internal wounds and the external challenges that come with being in Class 3E.
This focus on the internal struggles and how each student grows, that leads the essay into looking more closely at the students themselves, right? Section 2 gets into them as individuals.
Yeah, it moves beyond just Class 3E, the group of failures. The essay makes a point of exploring the diversity within that marginalized group.
So they're united by being pushed aside, but they're not all the same.
Exactly. The essay stresses that each student comes in with their own unique backstory, their own specific challenges, and importantly, their own hidden potentials. It refuses to just accept the failure label and digs into the reasons they ended up in 3E, often finding these deeper emotional or circumstantial wounds you mentioned.
And it uses specific characters from the story to show this, right? They're not just generic stand-ins.
Right, the essay points to examples, like Nagisa.
Okay, what about Nagisa?
He's often overlooked. He's quiet. Seems kind of unassuming. But the essay highlights that beneath that surface, there's this incredibly sharp, strategic mind. He's observant, analytical.
Things Koro-sensei picks up on.
Exactly. Koro-sensei sees it, nurtures it, and even uses Nagisa's unique skills to devise some really clever assassination plans. It completely challenges the idea that being quiet means you're weak or lack potential.
Okay. And then there's Karma. The essay describes him differently.
Yeah, Karma is portrayed as angry, definitely gifted, but also sort of rebelliously desperate.
What does that mean?
Well, the essay sees him as a classic case of potential gone sour because of alienation. He's incredibly smart, physically capable, but he felt so let down and misunderstood by his previous teachers that all that energy turned into destructive rebellion.
In Koro-sensei's approach.
Crucially, Koro-sensei doesn't try to just stamp out Karma's rebellious streak. Instead, he helps him channel it. He redirects that energy, that intellect, those combat skills towards the assassination goal, while also teaching him things like self-control and strategic thinking. He validates the strength, but refines its application.
That's a very different approach. What about Kayano? The essay mentions her being heartbreakingly double-edged.
Kayano's story adds another layer, according to the essay. On the surface, she's cheerful, super loyal to the class, but that hides this deep personal motivation, a past trauma that's actually connected to Koro-sensei himself.
Oh, okay.
Her arc, as the essay discusses it, really explores themes of identity, hiding parts of yourself, vulnerability. The double-edged part refers to how her hidden strength and her secret drive related to the assassination plot also cause her immense personal pain. It's complex.
So the takeaway from the essay here is that these aren't just caricatures of bad students. They're distinct people. They have complex backgrounds, specific talents that the normal system just missed or maybe even punished.
Exactly. And unique emotional baggage that landed them in this specific class.
And the education Koro-sensei provides. The essay stresses it's way more than just book learning.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, he does teach them regular subjects, often in completely bizarre ways tied to assassination techniques, but still.
Right.
But the real learning, the essay argues, is experiential. It's emotional. It's social. Facing this impossible task day in and day out under his unique guidance, they learn essential life skills.
What kinds of skills does the essay pull out?
Things like trust, learning who to trust, how to build it between themselves, realizing they have to rely on each other in these literally life or death scenarios they devise.
That makes sense in that context.
They also learn about doubt, healthy doubt, questioning authority, including Koro-sensei himself sometimes, questioning their own perceived limits. They learn to think critically, not just follow orders blindly.
It's not about blind faith in him then.
Not at all. It's informed skepticism, critical engagement, and of course they learn to fight.
Literally, with knives and guns.
Yes, literally. But the essay sees that as practice for something bigger. Fighting for their own worth, fighting for each other, standing up for themselves, asserting their right to be seen and respected.
Which they probably never felt they could do before.
Precisely. The bonds they form in that pressure cooker, that shared mission, create this incredibly strong community and mutual support system, something totally absent in their previous school lives.
So the essay's argument is that their transformation, this awakening, it's fueled directly by having to face conflict, both the external conflict with Koro-sensei and their own internal conflicts.
Yes. Through those struggles, they figure out who they really are, what they're capable of. It reinforces the essay's point that real education, the kind that sticks, often involves being pushed, facing challenges, and discovering yourself in the process.
Rather than just being shielded from difficulty.
Exactly. It's a powerful argument that genuine growth requires both challenge and support. Believing in someone enough to give them a hard task, and then giving them the tools and encouragement to actually tackle it.
Which brings us right back to Koro-sensei himself. Section 3 of the essay really zooms in on him, his methods, his character, and presents him as, well, as an ideal leader.
Yeah, the essay's description of his teaching style is really striking. It says he doesn't just, stand up there and lecture. He teaches with his soul.
Teaches with his soul. What does that mean in practice?
The essay uses that phrase to capture this deep level of personal investment. Passion. Genuine care that goes way beyond just transferring information. He sees teaching as holistic, involving the whole person.
So he's not obsessed with test scores and rankings like the main school system is?
Not at all. The essay emphasizes that point strongly. He sees people, not just grades or data points. He takes the time, somehow despite his speed, to understand each student, their strengths, their weaknesses, how they learn best, what's going on with them emotionally.
And he adapts.
Constantly. He creates personalized strategies, tailored approaches to help each student tackle their specific hurdles, both academic and personal. He doesn't judge them for past failures. He guides them based on their potential and their effort now.
And this whole approach is why the essay labels him an ideal leader. What are the core traits it identifies?
It highlights 3 main ones: empathetic, consistent, and authentic.
Okay, break those down based on the essay's view. Empathetic.
Because he genuinely seems to understand how the students feel being excluded and undervalued. The essay suggests he draws on his own complex past experiences to connect with their pain.
Consistent.
His dedication never wavers. He never gives up on any of them, no matter how difficult they are or how many times they fail an assassination attempt. His core goal, their growth, remains constant. Even his sometimes extreme reactions are rooted in that goal.
And authentic.
He's just himself. Unapologetically. Tentacles, super speed, weird weaknesses, his destructive potential, his commitment to teaching. It's all out there. He doesn't put on a mask. The essay argues this fosters real connection, not the distance created by trying to be a perfect, unrelatable authority figure.
What's really compelling is how the essay connects this to actual established leadership theories, stuff you normally hear about in like business school.
Right. It takes these concepts from organizational leadership and applies them to this completely fantastical scenario, and it works surprisingly well. This is where the essay really distills some practical insights.
Okay, like what? It mentions servant leadership.
Yes, servant leadership is all about the leader prioritizing the growth and well-being of their followers first. Koro-sensei is the ultimate example, according to the essay. His entire purpose for that year is ensuring those students thrive, even if the endpoint is his own death facilitated by them. He puts their needs, academic, emotional, combat training, absolutely first.
And empowerment ties in too.
Hugely. Empowerment is about giving people the tools, the confidence, the agency to tackle big challenges. Koro-sensei does this in the most radical way possible. He gives teenagers the mission to kill him, this supposedly invincible being, and then provides the specialized training, the strategies, the weapons, everything they need to make it even conceivable.
He doesn't just solve the problem for them.
No, he equips them to solve it. The essay probably points to moments where he deliberately holds back during an attempt or designs a test where they have to rely on themselves, forcing them to discover their own competence.
And that level of change, that sounds like transformational leadership.
Exactly what the essay argues. Transformational leaders inspire deep, fundamental shifts in their followers' attitudes, beliefs, capabilities. Koro-sensei takes this class labeled the worst and turns them into competent, confident, resilient young people. It's not just about better grades. It's about changing how they see themselves and what they believe is possible for their future.
The essay likely points to specific student breakthroughs.
You bet. Moments where a student masters a skill or overcomes a fear they thought was impossible, purely because Koro-sensei fostered that belief in them.
And the last one mentioned is a coaching mindset.
Right. Instead of just dictating or grading, he acts like a coach. He guides. He gives incredibly detailed, personalized feedback. The essay might mention his famous notebooks analyzing every student's attempts.
Ah, yes.
He asks questions to make them think strategically. He focuses on drawing out their unique strengths. It's all about developing potential, not just measuring current performance. He's constantly tuning his approach for each student like a dedicated coach trying to unlock their best.
It's pretty amazing how these established theories map so clearly onto this, well, alien octopus teacher. It forces you to look past the weirdness and see the universal principles.
And the essay makes a crucial point about his authority. It's not based on fear, even though he could destroy the earth. It's not based on his job title.
It's earned.
Completely earned. Through the trust he builds, day after day of showing up, caring, believing in them, being consistent. The essay contrasts this sharply with the traditional authority figures in the story who relied on hierarchy and fear, the ones who dismissed 3E. It argues true influence comes from that earned respect and relationship.
So Koro-sensei's whole method, the essay sees it as a kind of rebellion, a quiet rebellion against the system.
Yes, against a world obsessed with rankings, pressure, narrow definitions of success. He just ignores all that.
And instead,
the essay frames his entire presence as a love letter to the potential that lives in every human being, especially those the system has written off. He doesn't see irredeemable failure. He sees potential just waiting for the right conditions, the right spark. His teaching becomes this act of radical hope aimed squarely at the forgotten ones.
That's a really powerful way to put it. And it brings it back to something very human, very relatable. You think about your own life, maybe a teacher or a boss or a mentor who saw something in you, who believed in you, maybe even before you did.
Yeah.
The essay suggests that kind of belief can be just as transformative for us as it was for the students in Class 3E.
And that connection between feeling personally seen and the bigger ideas about education and leadership, that's a constant thread the essay weaves. It makes the story feel relevant, personal, even with the tentacles and Mach 20 speed.
Okay, so building on that, Section 4 takes an even wider view. The essay argues Class 3E isn't just about the school, it's a mirror of reality, a microcosm of society itself.
Right. The essay makes this leap, saying the whole setup of Class 3E, this segregated class for the failures, isn't just a plot point. It's a powerful symbol reflecting real-world social dynamics.
How so? Who does Class 3E represent in the real world, according to the essay?
It gets pretty specific. The essay suggests Class 3E stands in for various groups who often find themselves pushed to the margins by mainstream society.
Like who?
It lists examples like kids from unstable homes who might lack the typical support systems schools assume. It mentions neurodivergent youth, those whose ways of thinking or learning don't neatly fit the standard classroom mold. Students with migration backgrounds are mentioned, facing potential language or cultural hurdles that can lead to being underestimated, and also queer kids who might experience social exclusion or lack of acceptance, especially in more rigid or traditional school settings.
That's quite a range of experiences. What's the common thread the essay identifies?
It boils down to a shared understanding. They all know what it means to not belong. That feeling of being judged, overlooked, maybe misunderstood by a system that wasn't really designed with them in mind or doesn't make space for their differences. That shared feeling of being othered is the link between the fictional class and these real-world groups.
And by drawing that parallel, the essay argues the story forces us to ask some tough questions about our own world.
Exactly. It highlights the questions lurking just beneath the surface of the narrative, like who actually gets to decide who has failed? What gives anyone that authority? And based on what criteria? Are those criteria fair? Are they even relevant to true potential?
And the flip side of that.
Right. What happens when we challenge those labels? What are the possibilities for individuals, for society, when we actually invest belief and resources in people who've been dismissed?
The essay essentially sees the school in the story as a miniature version of society.
Precisely. Full of hierarchies, mechanisms of exclusion, some subtle, some overt, and often promoting ideals of success that just aren't attainable or even desirable for everyone. It's this parallel that makes the story's critique hit home, the essay argues. You see your own world reflected, maybe uncomfortably, in this extreme fantasy setting.
So it's a challenge to us, the readers, the viewers, to look around at our own schools, our workplaces, our communities.
And ask, are we creating our own versions of Class 3E? Are there places where potential is being ignored or actively stifled because of prejudice or rigid systems or just plain lack of empathy?
It's a really direct call from the essay, then, a call to rethink what education is fundamentally for. Should it be sorting and ranking, or should it be about nurturing human potential?
Yes, and rethinking leadership, too. Moving beyond just managing tasks and performance towards actively seeing and fostering the potential in people. And fundamentally, rethinking how we view individuals, challenging ourselves to look for that hidden spark, especially in those who seem unconventional or have been pushed aside.
These are big, important challenges, and the essay argues this unlikely anime story provides a surprisingly potent way to think about them. It definitely makes you pause and reflect on your own experiences with educational or social systems. Did they feel inclusive? Did they sometimes perpetuate exclusion? Does that Class 3E dynamic resonate at all?
Yeah, the essay really uses the story's emotional power to make you engage with these big societal questions on a personal level.
Okay, let's shift to the ending. Section 5 of the essay tackles Koro-sensei's death, and it's up front that this isn't treated as a spoiler.
No, the essay frames it as the essence of the whole thing. The meaning isn't if he dies that's baked into the premise, but how he dies and why.
This seems crucial for the essay's ethical and philosophical take.
Absolutely. It reframes his death completely. It's not presented as the students finally overcoming him, defeating him against his will.
How is it presented then?
The essay interprets it as the ultimate completion of his mission. He essentially allows them to kill him at the very end, signaling that his job is done. They're now strong enough, capable enough to stand on their own without him. His death becomes the final graduation ceremony in a way.
He achieved his purpose.
Exactly. The essay points out his goals were multifaceted. 1, make the students strong, give them the skills, the confidence, the resilience to face the world. 2, atone for his own past. The story hints at a dark history, and teaching this class was his way of making amends.
And the third goal?
To leave the world, or at least this small corner of it, better than he found it, specifically to leave these students empowered. His death, in this reading, is the ultimate act of letting go, allowing them to fully own the strength he helped them find.
So it's not a tragedy in the conventional sense, it's the final lesson, the necessary conclusion to his teaching project and his personal redemption arc.
Right. And the essay really digs into the deeper implications here.
Right.
It argues that death, in this context, isn't just an ending. It's about transformation and legacy.
Transformation how?
His death is the final catalyst. It forces the students to fully internalize everything they learned. They can't rely on him anymore. They have to rely on the strength he nurtured within them. They step into their own power completely.
And it also highlights responsibility.
Yeah, in 2 ways. His death is the culmination of him taking responsibility for his past actions, his atonement. But the students, by carrying out the act, take on a huge responsibility too. Not just for honoring his memory, but for using what he taught them, for shaping their futures with the capability and dignity he helped them discover.
And the biggest theme here seems to be about the meaning of life itself.
That's where the essay lands, philosophically. It uses Koro-sensei's life and death to argue that meaning isn't about duration, how long you live. It's about impact.
Measure?
Measured by the love he showed his students, the positive change he sparked in them, and ultimately by his selfless act of enabling their growth, even at the cost of his own existence. The essay suggests this is a profound way to live, dedicating yourself to empowering others.
There's a really poignant line that essay mentions, something like, "You can leave in peace if you have lived with love."
Yes, it suggests Koro-sensei achieves that peace. His final act, carried out by his students with his consent, becomes the ultimate testament to his love and dedication for them. It's a deeply moving conclusion, and it definitely challenges you, the listener, to think. How do you define a life well lived? What does a meaningful impact look like? Is it just achievements, or is it more about the positive influence you have on the people around you, the hope you might inspire?
That reflection on life, death, and legacy naturally leads into the final section, section 6, where the essay ties everything together and we learn a bit more about the author's own perspective. The essay concludes that Assassination Classroom isn't just a story, it's actually presented as a kind of compass.
Yeah, a compass for different kinds of people. For educators, the essay suggests it's this powerful reminder that teaching is fundamentally about inspiring hope, seeing the whole person, not just being an information dispenser.
And for leaders?
For leaders, it's a call to adopt that Koro-sensei-like empathy, to see the individuals on your team, not just numbers on the spreadsheet, to focus on potential, not just past performance.
And even for societies.
It acts as a compass pointing away from elitism and exclusion, the kind of thinking that creates those forgotten corners like Class 3E, and towards more justice and inclusion.
The essay also says it's a compass for anyone who's felt, inadequate or overlooked.
Right. For anyone who's had that experience but somehow found the strength to keep going, the essay validates that struggle and celebrates that quiet, often unseen resilience.
And the essay crystallizes this by highlighting a specific quote from Koro-sensei, calling it maybe the most important lesson of all.
Yes, the quote is, "A teacher should not only impart knowledge, but inspire hope."
It sounds simple, but after unpacking the essay's whole analysis of his impact, that sentence carries enormous weight.
Absolutely. The essay leaves you with that thought that fostering hope might be the most fundamental, most vital part of teaching, leading, maybe even just being human. It's the soil where self-belief and potential can actually grow.
Now, the essay includes something called a reflective box. This is where the author connects things personally, right?
Yes, and it's a really effective part of the essay. It bridges the gap between analyzing this fictional story and the author's own real-world lived experiences. It makes the arguments feel much more grounded and relatable.
How so? What does the author share?
They talk about their own journey through different educational systems and experiencing firsthand that feeling of being underestimated, of having potential overlooked because they didn't fit the standard mold.
So they've felt like a student in Class 3E in a way.
Exactly. That personal story gives their critique of educational exclusion real power and authenticity. They're not just theorizing, they're speaking from experience.
And they contrast that with positive experiences.
Yes, they talk about encountering mentors or leaders who did see something in them, who believed in them, much like Koro-sensei did for his students. This reinforces the essay's core argument about the incredible impact of that kind of belief-instilling leadership. It shows it's not just a nice idea in a story. It's a real force that changes lives. The author implies it changed theirs.
And the author connects this to their own work now.
Directly. They state their own mission is kind of carrying forward that Koro-sensei legacy, trying to lead with humility, teach with soul, and deliberately make space for and advocate for those who are often forgotten or marginalized.
So their academic analysis, personal story, and professional goals all weave together.
Precisely. It links their work as a leadership expert and cultural ambassador back to the philosophy they found so compelling in this anime character.
And their final point in that reflection.
It's a powerful affirmation that anyone who gives hope can change lives. Whether you have tentacles and superpowers, or just the human ability to offer belief and encouraging words, it really drives home the essay's central message. There's also that brief about the author note, which adds another layer of context.
Right, it mentions the author using their Chinese name, Lóng Tíng, and their background.
And the essay, or the context around it, points out that using the Chinese name isn't just incidental. It's framed as a conscious choice, an act of cultural positioning and authenticity.
How does that connect?
It underlines their role as a cultural ambassador, someone whose work involves bridging different worlds, technology and education, different cultures, different ways of thinking. It resonates perfectly with the essay's own theme of connecting disparate ideas and challenging norms.
And the author's writing style itself is described as reflecting this bridging role, like an invitation to dialogue.
Yes, and you can feel that reading the essay, can't you?
Hmm.
The rhetorical questions aren't just devices. They genuinely pause and invite you, the reader, into a conversation. The metaphors aren't just decorative. They create emotional connections, sparking dialogue not just intellectually, but maybe in your own heart too. The style aims to engage and maybe even transform the reader, much like Koro-sensei's teaching aimed to transform his students.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive then. We've seen how this essay takes Assassination Classroom, this seemingly wild story, and uses it as a lens for some really deep thinking.
Yeah, thinking about transformative education, that's about more than just facts.
Empathetic leadership that's truly focused on empowering people.
A really sharp critique of how society can exclude and marginalize.
And ultimately, a moving reflection on what makes a life meaningful. Maybe it's about fostering potential in others right up to the very end.
And the essay's core message, echoed through Koro-sensei, that key quote, and the author's own story, really comes down to the incredible power of hope. The critical importance of believing in the potential hidden inside everyone, especially those society might have already given up on.
It's a call to look beyond the surface, isn't it? Whether it's the surface absurdity of a story about a tentacled teacher or the surface judgments we might quickly make about people or systems in our own lives.
Definitely. And the essay doesn't just want to leave you with these thoughts. It wants you to keep thinking. It ends with that Vertiefungsvorschlag, a suggestion for further exploration.
Right. It basically turns it back to us, to you listening. What other questions does this whole discussion raise for you?
Questions about leadership, maybe what effective leadership really looks like in your context. Questions about education, what needs to change, how can we make it more human-centered?
Or even just thinking about pop culture like anime. How can stories like this act as mirrors, reflecting society back at us in surprising ways?
It's really an invitation to continue the dialogue. Keep questioning, keep reflecting. And maybe, as the essay subtly suggests, to think about where you might encounter or even embody a bit of that Koro-sensei approach in your own life.
You mean that willingness to look for a potential where others might not see it? And to actually invest in inspiring hope.
Exactly. Keep exploring those ideas.
That's a powerful place to leave it. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.